Hello everyone, welcome to the build video. I'll be going over gear, consumables, champion points, Mundus, races, attributes, and scripts, as well as a brief explanation of why I chose to wear the gear that I wore and the skills that I chose at the end of the video. I will also go over a couple alternatives that you guys can experiment with as well, so stay tuned for that. So first, for the gear, I have opted to wear mechanical acuity with Rallying Cry, Monomyth, and Balorgh. Fairly standard gear, which makes it great for accessibility and swappability, since, everybody's kind of running it on all their characters right now. And for the enchants, I am wearing all prismatics on the armor, and triple physical damage on the jewelry. I am running an absorbed stamina enchant on the front bar for even greater stamina sustain, as well as a little bit of damage from the potential Sunder procs. There is also a flame enchant on the offhand. The reason for that is because it is buffed by our Ardent Flame passive, Traumatic Burns. And for the traits, we are running triple triune on all the jewelry to increase the sustain we get from Heart of Flame. On the armor, we're doing reinforced on the chest with impen on everything else. Since the crit damage in today's meta is so high, it's really nice to offset some of that with more impen pieces, which is why we also run impen on our shield. And finally, we run double Nirnhoned on the front bar to push our damage as high as we possibly can for when our acuity procs and to get those crit damage multipliers to go crazy. For consumables, I am running Sugar Skulls to push our resource pools as high as we can to help with the sustain that Heart of Flame gives us. Not only does it help with sustain, but it also helps our damage since damage scales with our resources. And for potions, I opted to just run Tri-Stat. However, the spell resistance potions do also help if you find that you're getting nuked a little too fast, especially against a lot of these DKs that are running whip, because that shit does hurt. However, if you do this, just be aware that your stamina sustain will suffer a bit, so you will have to be a little bit more careful about how you play. And if you're struggling with the DKs, I would actually opt for the alternative that I'm going to present at the end of the video. And for the scripts, we are running Healing, Class Mastery, and Vitality on the Healing Soul. And for the Bloody Knife, we have the Bleed, Warrior's Opportunity, and the Off Balance. So for the Healing Soul, the reason we run Vitality is because it provides us with both major and minor Vitality when we're on our back bar. So because we're running Monomyth, we get both Vitalities, which definitely makes your survivability like really high when you're on your back bar. So lots of healing there. And then with the Bloody Knife, the off balance is obviously really important to proc our Power Lash. And the Warrior's Opportunity is just really nice for all that martial damage. Now for the champion points, we are doing Fighting Finesse, Resilience, Ironclad, and Duelist Rebuff for the blue tree. For the red tree, we are running Rejuvenation, Survival Instincts, Sustained by Suffering, and Pain's Refuge. Now I must admit, I'm a Battlegrounds enjoyer, so you will likely find that when you go out into Imperial City or Cyrodiil, that your sustain might even be too high. And if this is the case, it's likely worth swapping Rejuvenation for Celerity for that extra movement speed, or Fortified for some extra resistances. Now moving on to the Mundus, we are running the Shadow. Pretty standard stuff here. For the attributes, we have 64 points into stamina, and the reason for this is because it actually helps with our stamina sustain a lot. Typically for me, my playstyle, I tend to run around and dodge a lot, and I like to be very mobile. So having that 64 points into stamina definitely helps with the Heart of Flame. Now, the racial, like what race you guys should run, there's a lot of good options here. So I personally, in the video, am running High Elf, but this is not a good option. I don't recommend doing it. That's just what my character was. What I would actually recommend running the most is probably Khajiit, because we're running Acuity. Having that extra crit damage definitely helps to offset everybody's impen pieces. However, if you guys find that you want to be a little bit tankier, you can absolutely do Breton because of the spell resistance that it provides, as well as the max sustain. And Dark Elf is also a really good option in today's meta because there's a lot of DKs right now, and the flame resistance is definitely helpful. All right, so now let's go over why I chose some of the abilities that I chose, and then we can move on to some other alternatives that you guys might be wanting to try out. So for PvP, we have to make sure that we have all of our important major and minor debuffs. So Hurricane provides our major resolve, Vigor provides our minor, and to mitigate other people's major and minor resolves, we run our Deep Fissure for this, since it provides both versions of the Breach. For our major brutality buff, as well as extra mag sustain, we have our Blue Betty, which cleanses debuffs every 5 seconds, or provides us with a nice 5% damage buff if nothing is cleansed. Deceptive Predator on the back bar is very nice for the mobility and the immobilization immunity. It also provides minor evasion, which is huge in today's meta. So much of the damage we take in PvP is AoE. So we have Incinerate, Shocks, Power Lash, Heart of Flame, Hurricane. These are all very bursty AoEs, which the major evasion definitely helps with. Or sorry, minor evasion. And while we do run acuity, having the extra crit rate from Incinerate can be helpful for when our acuity is on cooldown. And the extra crit rate also helps with crit rate healing and stuff like that. So it's not only offensive, but it is defensive in a way as well. And since we run Temporal on our back bar, we are given minor protection when we need to back up and play defensive with our sword and shield. Okay, now let's talk about our rotation for the build. So the buffs that you want to keep up dynamically, whatever they go on cooldown, is Incinerate, Hurricane, Blue Betty, and Vigor. So you just want to make sure to keep those off cooldown and make sure that they're always up. Now, the Heart of Flame and Shocks have a very strong interaction. So if you time these two abilities together, it's going to deal a ton of burst damage. So the way we time this is with we can cast our Heart of Flame first, and then our Shocks immediately after, and you're going to see that they go off at the same time. Now, here's where it gets important. So the second row of Shocks that come out that we just saw there, we also need to time that. So when we cast our Heart of Flame and then our Shocks, they'll go off at the same time. And then we can cast our Heart of Flame when our Shocks are at 4 seconds for the second row of Shocks. And then you can see that they go off at the same time. So I'll do that again. So Heart of Flame, Shocks. Shocks at 4 seconds, we cast Heart of Flame again. And then now the second row of Shocks and Heart of Flame goes off at the same time. So now I'm going to show you a full rotation on the Parch Dummy with the ultimates involved in everything. And you guys can just pay attention to what skills I'm casting in what order and follow along on your own Parch Dummy. So I'm going to go ahead and pre-buff. And there you go. So you can see you have about you have room for two GCDs of whip between your first and second Shocks. So you definitely want to make sure to do that to keep the pressure up on your enemy. And then you can time your ultimate so that it goes out at the same time as your Heart of Flame and your Shocks. So I'll give another demonstration, except this time I'm going to use Dawnbreaker because that is another ultimate that you can use for this build. So let's do Dawnbreaker and pre-buff. And there you go. So you can see that everything lines up really well in this build. When you cast your abilities in the right order and you time your Heart of Flame with your Shocks and your ultimate, you can deal a ton of burst damage. So that is everything for the rotation that you guys need to know. And let's move on to the next section of the build. All right, let's go over some alternatives to the build that you guys can use and test out for yourselves, see if it works better with your playstyle. So the first alternative I'm going to present to you guys is the alternative that is less mobile, but provides you major evasion, which can help against the incinerate damage, shocks, heart of flame, power lash, all that good stuff. All the AoE abilities in the game get 20% damage reduction against you. So the way that you're going to do this is you're going to go to your dual wield skill line, and you're going to put quick cloak in place of incinerate on your front bar. And then you're going to move incinerate to the back bar instead of deceptive predator. And what this does is, well, obviously you now have major evasion, which, you know, increases that damage reduction against the AoE abilities and makes you less mobile. So if you like that sort of like brawlers playstyle, this might be a good option for you. Just keep in mind that if you're in the middle of everything and you don't have a good escape route and you start to get a lot of heat, you may struggle with survivability a little bit, even with the major evasion. And you might be able to offset this a little bit with the flame resistance on your jewelry. So you can just enchant like one of your pieces with the flame resistance and get an extra, like, I think it's like 5k flame resistance or something like that. That can definitely help. If you're gonna run this build, I might recommend doing a flame resistance glyph because of all the DKs right now. I mean, they really hurt. Those power lashes are no joke. So that's a good way to do it. So this is alternative 1. And I'm going to present you guys with alternative 2. So if we swap this back and then go to our back bar, we can actually run Ball of Lightning instead of Deceptive Predator. So this is the best escape skill in the game. There's absolutely nothing that tops this. So you're going to find that when you run this, you tend to survive a lot of situations that you would have previously died to. I was running this a lot in Battlegrounds, and it was doing wonders for me. So this is also a very, very good option. However, it just means that your overall movement speed, like running around, is just a little bit less. So I really like to run around a lot, which is why I love Deceptive Predator. And the skill Deceptive Predator, to me, just feels really good. So I really like Deceptive Predator, but there's no arguing that Ball of Lightning is just a way better escape mechanism. So if you guys prefer that, definitely run it. It's very good. And for another option, if you guys want to push your damage even further and lose a little bit of survivability, then you guys can actually just do the Psijic skill, Race Against Time. So we don't have a source of minor force on this build without Race Against Time. So this is also a really good option for those of you who just want to push your damage even further and you don't really care as much about like survivability or anything like that. This is a really good skill to run. So for those of you who just want to nuke the shit out of people, just do this. This is fantastic. It works really well. I played a few Battlegrounds with this, and it definitely made a little bit of a noticeable improvement for sure. So definitely give that a try. All right, so there's the build. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And if you guys enjoyed the build, let me know. Drop a comment below and make sure to like the video and subscribe for future content. I appreciate it. Take care.